We are delighted and honored to be in the presence of the aristocracy of the Indian cinema, the Dada of the Indian film industry, none other than your favorite, Mr. Dilip Kumar, and his charming and beautiful wife, Saira Banu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Dilip Saab and Saira ji.
Thank you very much.
Yusuf Bhai, it's an honor and a privilege for the Canadian community to have your visits here, especially in the context of the outstanding community services that you have launched in your career in the last several years. You decided to launch extremely worthwhile social service causes.
I've got to reveal you certain secrets in that case. You see, primarily I think it's for my own mental well-being, mental and physical both, because cinema is a media where public acclaim, stardom and adulation can upset the balance of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
An artist who come to fame at an early age without any guidance, they need to balance their personality and go out of themselves, sort of tranquilize this terrific or irresistible convulsion that takes place inside the man. You must have heard about great stars being subjected to the psychiatrist's couch.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them at the zenith of their popularity committing suicide.
And resorting to drugs otherwise.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe, for instance.
Very sad story.
We had that living example, of Gurudat, our friend Gurudat, who killed himself. Now, I think that's all a problem, psychological problem, because one is not able to equate fame and contain it. To tranquilize yourselves, you have to go out of yourself and mingle with people, get to know about causes, and have your feet planted firmly, mind you, planted firmly on earth. Otherwise you drift away into space and create problems. So I started off with certain association with Dr. Minu Masani, who was running the Institute for Mentally Retarded Children. And then we got to work more, and then there was the famine, and then you worked for floods and working, collecting clothes and money and funds and grain, and then forming bodies, gradually becoming heads of the body or an office bearer, and you expand yourself gradually. You begin to appreciate the value of such work in all civilized human society. And we have very many problems in India. We shouldn't make a secret of it, because it's known that tremendous explosion of population. Although we've made tremendous strides in industry and commerce. But these problems of eruption of the big cities and industries have had its own reactions.
For those of you who tuned in a little later, Mr. Dilip Kumar needs absolutely no introduction in the South Asian community. People from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, East Africa, South Africa, West Indies, Guyana and the Fiji Islands hold him in such high esteem that he is not only a star idol for them, he's on a pedestal. Now, as far as Mr. Dilip Kumar's outstanding performances from the past motion picture hits, incidentally, several of them were box office hits, Silver Jubilee, Golden Jubilee and Diamond Jubilee movies. We now have a montage, a sample of some of the outstanding motion pictures where Mr. Dilip Kumar was featured. Let's watch a segment.
तुम रोज-रोज भगवान से क्या मांगने जाया करती हो?
जो मांगा था वो उन्होंने दे दिया।
कुछ कहते हुए भी डरता हूँ।
Saira Banu is a name that's synonymous in the film industry. She's an outstanding film star, and at the peak of her career, she was one of the highest paid artists of the Indian subcontinent and one of the most respected artists of the Indian subcontinent. But for most of you probably who were not familiar, she was not only a star, she was also a great dancer.
तो अपने दिल को समझाओ ना।
कितनी बदनामी हो रही है आपकी, लोग क्या क्या कह रहे हैं आपके बारे में। बाबूजी, आपने मुझे पनाह दी, इज्जत दी, नई जिंदगी दी।
सिर्फ 100 रुपया।
तो और क्या चाहिए? लाख रुपया?
Some of your films were all Golden Jubilee movies. I mean, I don't know which ones to pick because they're all equally good. But you were outstanding, especially in movies like Bairag, Jangli, and Shagir. How did you get involved in the film industry? Your entry to the film industry?
How did you get involved in the film industry?
Well, it's the question of the forbidden fruit, you see. My mother, she has been a great artist in her own right, you know, the beauty queen Saira Banu.
Oh yes, of course.
But she kept me away from films. It was a very decided effort. She took me away to London for schooling when I was about 6 years old. And I don't know, whatever her reasons, she had her personal reasons. She wanted me perhaps to have some other kind of a career, you know. And I was a good student as well. And she had her dreams set to make me perhaps a lawyer or a doctor, which is always so, you know. And the child wants to do something else. Right. Well, anyway, I wanted very much to be in film. Somehow I had this yen for it. And eventually I would go down to India for my summer holidays. And this is just before I did my GCE. I must have been about 14 and a half.
This is in London?
At that time, in London. So I went to India for my holidays, and surprisingly...
That was the time we saw a little girl in her frocks coming on the sets of Mughals.
That's right.
And I was doing a scene with Madhubala at that time.
Great crush on Mr. Dilip Kumar, which I'm sure everyone knows about. So anyway, somehow I had this line of producers who were very keen to sign me up, probably because I was Saira Banu's daughter, you know how it is. And soon enough I was offered Jangli. So I took it up like that, and of course it met with a whole lot of turbulence from my family, from my mother. Nevertheless, I went ahead.
But it was a very big commercial success.
Oh yes.
So I started the film in my holidays. I did a few months shooting, and I went back to school, you see, at that time. And that's how it set the ball rolling, and I never had to sort of fall back on anything else. This was my dream come true.
The Jangli film of hers gave a rough time to my film Ganga Jamuna, because both of them were released at the same time. At the same time.
Right.
And I remember going into a shop, you know, which is a great big shop in Bombay called Akbar Ali's. And I was shopping for something with my mother, and there was this salesman who was absolutely a Dilip Kumar fan. You know? And they said, Suna, aapki beti, you know, your daughter is going to be in movies and her film is about to be released.
Right.
When is it going to be released? When is it being shown? So my mother said, well, just next month. So he said, oh, next month? Do you know that Ganga Jamuna is going to be released next month? And if you sort of come in at the same time, this film is going to be absolutely nowhere. And that almost gave me a nervous breakdown. You know, I started crying at that very shop. I said, oh my God, what have we done? You know, nobody's going to come and see my movie. But fortunately, it did so well that both these films, which were released within a week of each other, they both were Golden Jubilee and Platinum Jubilees.
Yusuf Bhai, tell us about your perception of her
I think her best films, two stand out in my mind. See?
Saira ji, our compliments to you. That was a tremendous performance.
Thank you so much.
Tell us Your first encounter, which was the first movie that you acted with Yusuf Bhai?
Oh, that's a long story. Do you know he refused film after film with me?
Really? Why
Yes,
is that?
and I want your viewers to know this. This is something that I hold against him so much.
Under instructions, you see.
That's very interesting.
In fact,
Some
you
of
know-
her family members didn't want Saira to be in the films.
Uh-huh.
And I was aware of their dislike for her joining the films. And I thought that I'd be displeasing them because I was a good friend of her father. And then her grandfather had sort of sent a message over to me. They never knew that she would be working with me in the films, but they said that if you can persuade her to drop all this and come back to us. Not that I succeeded much in that, but I said I cannot do this betrayal and be a conspiracy if I persuade her to do a film with me. But then later on, when she started working in films and those films were big hit, she was there to stay, and everybody was sort of reconciled to the idea that
So you
Saira
were forced to reckon with them by that time.
Yeah.
I see.
And,
But still he refused to do Ram or Shyam. Can you imagine?
Oh,
I was supposed to work in that.
Is that right?
Yes.
I
she
see.
was too young for Ramesh. She would have been too young.
What you cherish in him?
What I cherish in him.
Temper.
अपना बर चुनने वाली तुम कौन होती हो?
Temper.
He has a Pathan temper. Oh, he's a volcano.
Still, right?
Yes, but he's, oh well, what can I say? He's really such a lovely person. He's a fine human being, you know, and
I must give a deep bow for that. Give a deep bow for that.
You both being stars and performers of high caliber in your own right, do you ever come across differences of opinion with respect to your own communication with each other?
not
Quite
really.
all. No. I think quite
Yeah.
normal. You see, I am a typical one of those hen-pecked husbands. I belong to that club. They should make me the president of the. And
No, but I think if you are in the same profession, you can share such, so much more, don't you think so?
I think so.
There's so much more understanding.
I do believe that.
I mean, it would be terrible if I were married to a doctor or something. I'm sure I couldn't, it wouldn't be compatible.
no comments, you know. Well, that particular scene, why did you play it so close? It doesn't call for so snuggling so close to the leading lady. Those things are also there, but it's all fun. It's great fun, yes. It's very good because if we both belong to the same vocation, people, I mean, we understand the problems, and let's say if you have to shoot or stay away from home for long spells and
Odd hours.
odd hours, the exhaustion, the nervous exhaustion, which needs for a better understanding, then I think somebody out of the profession would be difficult for her to extend that kind of understanding. I don't imagine that it could have worked with somebody else. Tremendous. But gradually, like all women do, you see, she's got a hold of the whole situation now. Saira Banu is the boss of the whole setup.
आकर कह दो अपनी चहेती समदिन माँ से कि भगवान को साक्षी मानकर तारा ने अपना बर चुन लिया है.
Even this tie she selected for me.
Oh, it's very pretty.
And
One day in the life of Mr. Dilip Kumar and Saira Banu, an average day.
start off, of course, every morning starts off with a hot cup of tea.
Are
and
you
a
an early
toast.
riser?
No,
Okay,
no. It's because I am a late sleeper that I'm not an early riser.
sure.
Start off with a hot cup of tea.
Okay.
And then chaos, and more chaos, and still more chaos,
And people.
and people. And that's, I think, the pattern. You work in your spare time.
Right,
You
right.
work in your spare time because rest of the time you're socializing, or people call upon you for.
No, that's amazing actually. This is a very interesting phenomena of the Indian film industry, especially the big stars. You are swamped with people right outside your gate. You have two classes of people. One who have access to you inside your gate because they come through your managers or whatever it is, and you have your aides and people have connections through them, so they get to meet you in person. And there is another set of people who are ready to see you just drive out, and they're all outside your gate. How do you separate yourself between these two sets of people in terms of your time? Because people are always interested in meeting you in person.
You see, I think that we've got to take things in their stride. It's impossible to meet everybody.
Right.
Not possible.
We have these filters, you see. And the eventual filter is the wife.
And besides, if you,
That's the reason
if you open the gates, then you have the whole township walk in.
Exactly.
And
in fact, you know, we have truckloads and busloads of people who drive in from the smaller cities and gowns.
Yes.
And he literally has to come out and give darshan to them every hour or every 2 hours.
Right.
This kind of a thing also prevails.
Tremendous.
But this kind of, you know, devotion or affection, it overawes you.
It's lovely.
It is some kind of an, I mean, you feel you're indebted to these people for the affection that they give you for something that you did 10 years ago. You were talking about Devdas.
कौन कमबख्त है जो बर्दाश्त करने के लिए पीता है?
Or Ramar Sham.
आज की रात मेरे.
Whereas I'm through with Ramar Sham, and it is more than 15 years ago. And you're talking about Ramar Sham. So people who may have had moments, you know, they deep down in them, they store those moments. And when they see you, that moment sort of is reborn with them.
It's so
reborn with them. And when they talk to me about it, I may have forgotten the scene or maybe forgotten those lines, and you feel sometimes completely taken up by the concern and the devotion and the sincerity in their eyes. It is, I think, a kind of an obligation that you have. So even if you can't meet people outside, just say hello to them.
And that means a lot to them, of course.
Yes, it means a lot.
You've filled the hearts with such warmth.
Yeah, one shouldn't be stuck up and hiding away or trying to avoid them.
That's why I feel there's no profession like this. It's a marvelous thing.
तेरी महफिल तेरे जलवे हो मुबारक तुझको.
Film industry in India is the largest of its kind in the world. The motion picture industry, you know, deals with several obsessions, and they are extremely effective. And it's, as Marshall McLuhan says, the media is the message, and nothing is more true than India as an example. It's the common man's pleasure. Film is a mass experience. It's a community experience. As you well know, in the Western society, you go to a dance, everybody participates in the dance, whereas mostly in the Indian society, it's a performing art. You know, one person dances and 10,000 people watch. And of course, the villages are different. You know, we realize that. But the film has a tremendous, impact in the community.
बर-ए-आज़म की शिकस्त और मोहब्बत की फतह का दिन है. मैं तुम्हारा शुक्रगुजार हूं और उन शहीदों की मांओं को मुबारकबाद देता हूं.
You're one of the few within this film industry who is so eloquent in your expression, your vocabulary, your delivery, your diction. Where did you acquire this? Is it something that you consciously developed from your younger days, or is it something that you acquired through people experience? We are very interested in this. Tell us about it.
I wouldn't be able to pinpoint it, except that while we were young, we had a tradition of the Persian literature and Persian poetry in our family. You know, we come from northwest frontier where the Pathans, when they take to literature, they talk about Hafiz and Sadi and Jami and Rumi and Firdausi, those Persian poets. And that was the idiom in which people discussed with each other or talked or joked with one another. When we came back during the peak of the zenith of the freedom movement, I remember Maulana Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, you may have heard those names.
Yes.
That these people, scholars like Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, they came to, I mean, my father was one of their devotees. And we had frequent meetings with them. The caliber of mutual exchange and communication between people was of a very high order, very fine quality. And I suppose when I took to English, we tried to recapture that mood or the caliber, and that obliged me to learn to be more articulate. I think slowly, by and by, I didn't do any specific training for it, but now my wife keeps on helping me and
Helping you.
and guiding me to certain higher levels if it is possible.
No, but I feel that he's such a voracious reader, you see, and I mean, he's up till the morning, till the early hours of the morning, either reading or writing, and that is something which helps him so much, you know.
Tremendous.
It's something I don't like to disturb at all, because this is very vital to him.
Thank you very, very much, Yusuf Bhai. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program with us.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. You see, it's what a tremendous, vast contrast we have within our country. All these people that you were talking about, like the Buddhists and the Jains and the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims and the Hindus and the Sikhs, I don't think that there is any other country which has so many religious disciplines which have thrived for hundreds of years in togetherness and in easy, friendly togetherness. What we need and lack today is not only national integration in India, but international integration of the whole society of man. I mean, when we talk about it, people have to refer to it. They should be taken through the texts and the scriptures of the Urdu language, or the Persian language, or the Hindi language, or the Bengali language. The rich traditional culture and high traditions, aesthetic class of the Tamilian literature, the Kannada literature, the Malayali literature, the Bengali literature.
Beautiful.
We've had great poets, and so you're doing a great job here when you are putting up these people together, whether they're Sinhalese, or whether they're Pakistanis, or whether they're Indians. They are people of the same ethos.
Beautiful.
One given ethos. Let's not have differences. And those who are creating differences not only deserve human contempt, but divine contempt, I should say.
Really?
Those that create differences. We've had enough of it. But this is a great job, and I wish you really the best of luck in it.
Thank you very, very much, Yusuf Bhai. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program with us.
Thank you.
And we would be honored again by your presence on your next trip. We would love to have you, and we'll probably come down and meet you in Bombay and to get more of your blessings.
You'll be welcome. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Saira ji, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. We would love to have you again soon.